Good morning, everyone. Virgo here. It is July 11th, 2019. Okay, so I want to get right into this morning because I fear that this could be a longer video than what I generally like to force you guys to sit through. So let's get into this video from yesterday. That's called This is what mobilization looks like. There are a ton of questions in the comment section, and there have been several emails that I've received with regards to this, questioning things like the law and what is provided with regards to this scenario. And I'm going to go over those things, but before I do, I want to address the basic public reaction that was received through the comment section, which most of you that watch my channel have probably read and may be wondering about. Now, when something is brought up such as this, such as this situation that we have with the Moorish consulate, Sharon Tracy Gale Bay, and her followers, it's natural for human nature to take over and try to process it and understand what in the world is going on here. Why are we looking at this small group of people that seemingly don't make any sense to us, and the potential of what would be considered a terrorist threat that we should even take seriously? Now, a lot of you looked and have been following the sovereign citizen movement and these fringe movements for a long time and recognize how these people mobilize and what it is that they do as a hate group and as a terror group that actually do and have in the past come to fruition. That's why we have so many sovereign citizens that we can go back in the sovereign citizen history area and talk about how they ended up in prison. But what we're looking at here is in real time, and it's natural for people to go, what? This is just a crazy person that's talking about crazy things that don't have any basis in law and are never going to happen. But what I would like to draw your attention to is to not be too dismissive. That's the mistake that's been made by law enforcement and many, many others in the past. And one of the reasons why we have the see something, say something law now, because you don't realize a lot of times when someone, and we're not talking about a lone wolf like supposedly what occurred with Timothy McVeigh, for example, okay? We're not talking about a couple of people. So let me run through some actual facts with regards to this particular group. Number one, all you have to actually do is take a look at Facebook and YouTube to see that this group has a tremendous amount of followers in real time. The Moorish consulate that Sharon has up on just YouTube has over 5,500 subscribers. And even more on Facebook, and if you take a look at all of the other so-called consulates across the nation. So we are not talking about necessarily just a few people or even a couple hundred people. The potential for this is much larger than that, and that's something that I don't think people recognize. Now, this is not a fear-mongering video. This is, I want you to wake up and realize exactly what it is that makes it important that we as citizens watch these type of individuals. So let me give you a scenario here, as I did a couple of people in the comment section. This is not a probable scenario, but it is a possible scenario. And that's what we have to look at when we're dealing with groups of individuals that don't seem to be stable, as we're looking at here. So, how many of you are aware of what a protection racket is? It's something that the mafia runs. And really what it is it's a group that provides protection to businesses or provided protection to businesses or other groups through violence outside of the sanctioned law. So what they would do is they would go into a business, wherever they were located, Chicago, New York, this group that we call the mafia. And they would say, we're going to charge you 10 or 15% of your profits every single week, and send somebody here to collect those funds in order for you to have our protection. And in the beginning, people would go, "What? That's ridiculous. We have law enforcement here. We don't need your protection." Oh, okay, you don't need our protection. And what the mafia would do would be to just send people in to do nothing but destroy businesses or hurt people. And then they would come back later and go, "Well, I think you might need our protection. So we'll be taking that 50% of profits now." Protection racket. All of you have seen it, I'm sure, on a movie, right? Something that wasn't at all expected by the business owners or the organizations that faced these protection rackets from the mafia. So let me give you a scenario with this that you would not be expecting. For those that are saying, "Oh, this is kind of a crazy person and it's nothing to worry about," the probability of that is very, very high. That's probably true. But the possibilities that it could be something else that we're viewing are also there, and we do have to take those into consideration. You're a single mother, you own your own home or was inherited by a parent, and you have 2 children. You're divorced, and you work a full-time job as a nurse. You get this weird thing in the mail from the Moorish consulate telling you they're taking your home and you have 30 days to get out. You think it's absolutely insane, but you decide, "I'm going to keep it, put it in a drawer, and if I hear anything or have any questions, I'll contact law enforcement and I'll have this as proof." You leave it alone, you go back to your life, you go back to work, and all of a sudden, 65 days later, there's a knock at your door. You go to your door and you look out the peephole, and there are 55 men that are armed with guns and batons at your door, demanding that you leave their property. Now, even as an armed single parent, you can't shoot 55 people at once. And you have 2 children to be concerned with. Let's also think about the fact that none of this is being done legally. So really, is it going to be that far out of the question for windows to start being busted in or doors to start being busted in? Now, you're probably at the point of saying, "Fine, I will leave," and you figure you'll go to the police. Because let's face it, once you've got all those people standing at the door, it's going to be difficult to get enough of a force of 911 out there in time for things to not start getting more amped up and aggravated, potentially. But before you leave, you are demanded, or rather, in Sharon words, commanded, to sign over the deed to the house. See, it's not probable, but it's possible. And for this to even happen to one person, it's a very bad thing. It's one person too many. And that's why we need to take this seriously, because it's very easy to sit back and say, "Well, I'd like for them to try this crap on me. I'm armed." A lot of us are armed. And a lot of us agree with you. It's upsetting and immediately gets our haunches up. And we immediately say, "Well, that's not going to happen. I'm going to protect my property to the death." Well, unfortunately, blood has been shed many times by movements like these because of this type of scenario. And what I just proposed to you is a very real possibility, because believe me, when they mobilize groups like this, paramilitary type of groups, they don't show up in 2s and 3s. And the proof of that is in a video that's on Sharon's very channel. When Sharon thought she was going to be evicted in January of this year, she called upon a group of individuals from her region and asked them to show up at her property because they were planning on opposing the police coming in to remove Sharon and her family from her property. Very real, guys. So there's proof that there's backing, and there's a group that is large that we're dealing with here, or large enough to do some damage. So before you become dismissive, this is about being aware, not being fearful, being aware. Don't become dismissive. When we're dealing with terror groups, when we're dealing with fringe groups that are largely racist hate groups, you have to take into consideration all possibilities. And even though it may not have the highest probability of being the case or happening in that manner, it's possible. So stop and think. Now, let's move on to some of these laws. Okay, so what we are actually looking at here is Cornell Law School, and these links will be in the description for you guys to take a look at. And the very first thing we're actually going to be taking a look at here is 18 U.S.C. 2385, advocating overthrow of government. Now, before I go here, I want to draw your attention over here, which has to do with jurisdiction. Okay, so what we're looking at here at Cornell is the 31 CFR 515-329, and this tells us person subject to the jurisdiction of the United States or person subject to U.S. jurisdiction. And if you'll take a look down here and you'll look at A and B. So A says any individual wherever located who is a citizen or resident of the United States. That's obvious. And then B, any person within the United States as defined by 515.330. So we're going to take a look over there. This is 31 CFR 515.330. Person within the United States is defined as, number one, any person wheresoever located who is a resident of the United States, or two, any person actually within the United States. All right, so this is what creates jurisdiction of the United States Code, of the United States of America. These individuals are going to make this claim. It doesn't matter. We're not citizens of the United States. You don't have to be citizens of the United States. Any person actually within the geographical lines of the United States this applies to. But even if you want to go into your mumbo jumbo about how you are actually supposedly in Morocco, it wouldn't make a difference, because in your own videos, you use the United States Code in order to justify the things that you are doing as the Moorish consulate, whereby if you're using that code, you recognize the United States jurisdiction, because if you didn't, using that code would not matter. And you people use that code and cherry pick it to death in order to try to prove your points. So the bottom line is that since you're using that code, you recognize jurisdiction, and jurisdiction says, by law, any person actually within the United States, and any person within the United States at all, is subject to the jurisdiction of the United States of America. So let's first of all get that out of the way. So the laws that pertain to what's going on at the Moorish consulate, in which they recognize the United States Code as being accurate because they use it themselves, which means they're recognizing jurisdiction, because otherwise it wouldn't matter, state that in 18 U.S.C. 2385, advocating overthrow of government. Whoever knowingly or willfully advocates, abets, advises, or teaches the duty, necessity, desirability, propriety of overthrowing or destroying the government of the United States or the government of any state, territory, district, or possession thereof, or the government of any political subdivision therein by force or violence or by the assassination of any officer or any government, or whoever with intent to cause the overthrow or destruction of any such governments, prints, publishes, edits, issues, circulates, sells, distributes, or publicly displays any written or printed matter advocating, advising, or teaching the duty, necessity, desirability, or propriety of overthrowing or destroying any government in the United States by force or violence or attempts to do so, or whoever organizes or helps or attempts to organize any society, group, or assemble of persons who teach, advocate, or encourage the overthrow or destruction of any such government by force or violence, or becomes or is a member of or affiliates with any such society, group, or assembly of persons, knowing the purpose thereof, shall be fined under the title or imprisoned not more than 20 years or both, and shall be ineligible for employment by the United States or any department of or agency thereof for the 5 years next following the conviction. If 2 or more persons conspire to commit any offense named in this section, each shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 20 years or both, and shall be ineligible for employment by the United States or any department or agency thereof for 5 years. As used in this section, the term organizes and organize with respect to any society, group, or assembly of persons, including the recruiting of new members and forming of new units, and the regrouping or expansion of existing clubs, classes, or other units of such society, group, or assembly of persons. Now, there is more than this, much more. Let's take a look at what else is being looked at. So the information that was put out in this very video that I was critiquing yesterday for you guys is a call out for the field marshals, or the law enforcement, or as she calls it, the force behind what it is that the Moorish consulate is attempting to do. This would fall into 18 USC 2389, recruiting for service against United States. Whoever recruits soldiers or sailors within the United States or any other place subject to the jurisdiction thereof to engage in armed hostility against the same, or whoever opens within the United States or in any place subject to the jurisdiction thereof a recruiting station for the enlistment of such soldiers or sailors to serve in any manner in armed hostility against the United States shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 5 years or both. So now we're looking at 25 years. Next, this is 18 USC 2390, enlistment to serve against the United States. Whoever enlists or is engaged within the United States or in any place subject to the jurisdiction thereof with intent to serve in armed hostility against the United States shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 3 years or both. So now we're looking at 28 years. Okay, so the next code that we're looking at with regards to what's happening in this video, if action were to be taken, or even in some cases, no action would need to be taken because the mere attempt is enough. 18 USC 2383, rebellion or insurrection. Whoever incites, sets on foot, assists or engage in any rebellion or insurrection against the authority of the United States or the laws thereof, or gives aid or comfort thereto, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years or both, and shall be incapable of holding any office under the United States. So now we're talking about 38 years. See, it keeps adding up, and we're going to keep going through these because it starts getting more serious, believe it or not. Now, for those of you that do not know that sedition is a very serious crime, we're going to be taking a look at 18 U.S.C. 2384, seditious conspiracy. And that is exactly what this actually falls under, because we are dealing with more than one person. If two or more persons in any state or territory or in any place subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, which we have established, conspire to overthrow, put down, or destroy by force the government of the United States, or to levy war against them, or to oppose by force the authority thereof, or by force to prevent, hinder, or delay the execution of any law of the United States, or by force to seize, take, or possess any property of the United States contrary to the authority thereof, they shall each be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 20 years or both. And now we are probably looking at life in prison. There are sedition laws that call for death. Sedition is a very, very serious offense in the United States because it then goes to treason. 18 U.S.C. 2381, treason. Whoever owing allegiance to the United States levies war against them, or adheres to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort within the United States or elsewhere, is guilty of treason and shall suffer death, or shall be imprisoned not less than 5 years and fined under this title, but not less than $10,000, and shall be incapable of holding any office under the United States. It is punishable by death. This will do it for this video. This answers questions that people had with regards to what could be looked at from a standpoint of what's going on here with this loosely organized group of individuals that are trying to form their own army. Now, the likelihood of that happening and it actually turning into something where we would need to look at all of this may not be the highest chances. Let's hope not. But it's possible. And that's what I need to make sure that everybody is realizing. If you take groups like this flippantly and you do not take them seriously, you're making a big mistake. This is the reason why it is so incredibly important that we have task forces that actually deal with counterterrorism in Homeland Security and in the FBI, so that individuals like this can be watched before that single mother gets hurt or gets pulled from her home or ends up having anybody show up at her door or even a notice mailed to her. But because funding has been pulled, as I showed you yesterday, we are lacking in resources, and that puts a tremendous amount of pressure on the citizens to watch out for their own communities, as all of you are so very good at doing. Please make sure that you share these videos, guys. The information must get out there to people in order for people to understand what it is that they need to be concerned about with regards to these types of individuals, because they are growing and they're out there in every single state in this nation. And they have very strong beliefs, wrong though they may be. They believe what they're saying. And we need to be cautious. All right, everyone. I hope this helped you to understand a little bit better. And please, everyone, have a good day. Bye-bye.